And because we have like a range of products from mass market to premium items, as they, if in good times, as they upgrade from, let's say, mass market product to more premium products, there are brands and offerings within our portfolio that consumers buy. And as a result, we were seeing the benefit of such a strategy.
Hi everyone, we are back once again for another deep dive in one of your favorite stocks in the market. We have the COO and EVP of CNPF, Greg Banzon, joining us in the podcast today. So it's an honor, Mr. Banzon, to have you join us today.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure and an honor as well for me to be here.
And just to start, no, I've been a fan of Century Tuna as a consumer even when I was a kid, and it's a quick fix, especially when there was a time I would be a gym buff before. I needed protein, so boiled egg, Century Tuna, microwave, and then it's done. So it's nice to see local brands, by the way, for Filipinos at least to have exposure to it. Because I keep telling people that sayang naman, it's something that you already know, that be part of it already. If you love it so much as a consumer, why not also invest in it?
Correct. That's a good, let's say, point of view to have. It's a brand that's been around for a long time, and it's been able to communicate health, wellness, and fitness through its like communications and advertising. And I think consumers have latched onto it. I hear that story that you just relayed to me a while ago many times over, not just like gym buffs, but like students in dorms and people who have like who live in apartments and who want to have a tasty, healthy, and quick snack, for example. So they go to Century Tuna. It's their go-to food.
Yep. So when you listed a couple of years back, sabi ko, this is something that is interesting for Filipinos because it's something people can easily attach to and they see on a day-to-day level. And I'm excited to talk more about especially your other products, which impacts not just the middle class, but it hits every every demographic.
Yep. That's
now,
true.
But before we go to the meat of this, now I have two questions, and the reason why I was talking about my favorite brand that you have. Given a choice, what would you pick? Your hot and spicy variant of Century Tuna, or your flakes in oil or chunks in vegetable oil?
That's a good question. It's actually 50-50 in terms of volume performance of the two variants. So I guess the market is split over which one is their favorite. Personally, I like flakes in oil. I'm more of a purist. I like to be able to taste the real, flavor of tuna, and that's why the hot and spicy for me is a bit more too tasty and for my taste. But like I said, consumers vote for the brand by way of purchase, and 50% of the market actually choose hot and spicy.
Last year, it was a very, very unprecedented crisis.
Right.
No one at the end of 2019 predicted that the whole economy would be shut down, or at least a large part of the economy would be shut down by March 2020. My question is this: as an executive of CNPF, what was the first thing that came into your head when, number one, the lockdowns were announced? How were you thinking from running the business? And number two, a few days after the lockdown, the stock market opened again. Then you saw not just CNPF, but majority of the stocks drop a bit. So from a business standpoint and from a stock standpoint, what was your frame of mind?
Yeah, from the business perspective, sustainability is always key. So the first thing that we had to worry about, or that what came to our mind, was the health and safety of our employees. Because you can't really have a business if your employees are not well protected. So when the lockdowns and the spread of the pandemic was being announced, that was first and foremost in our minds. How do we ensure both the physical and the health and the safety of our employees, both from a physical perspective and even from a financial perspective? They need to be able to feel at ease and comfortable, that they'll be able to weather the challenges of the pandemic. So we put in place a very aggressive, let's say, protocols, health protocols. We tapped into World Health Organization and all the resources that we could get to figure out best practice models in protecting the welfare, health, and safety of employees, both inside the working environment, and ensuring their ability to perform their tasks. And at the same time, inside the environment and even when they go home. So we provided information that they could share with their families, to protect themselves both at work and at home. So that was the first. Of course, in terms of sustainability, was the supply chain. As we were protecting the welfare of employees, the next thing that came to our mind was, we are an essential product, so to speak. In fact, the DTI has identified at least about three out of the six essential food products in the consumer basket are products that CNPF manufactures and markets. So it was clear to us that we needed to ensure the supply chain was steady and, in fact, reliable. And even thinking that if something happens to our part of the supply chain, even food security in the country might have been affected. So we were making sure that food security and supply of product was consistent and sustainable, based on the demand that was surging at the time, of both the retailers and their consumers. A third element that we were putting in place was that let's not forget the long term. We were thinking, how do we continue operating and working on this, like, let's say, emergency situation, but at the same time keeping a view of the important things that we need to be able to pursue strategically from a long-term perspective. So those were the key things that we were working on. And then, if I may add the fourth, a lot of work also was put into thinking through and seeing how we could impact on society. I think it was about 6 or 7 days after the lockdown that we announced that we were going to extend some support to the most vulnerable sections of society that were being affected by the pandemic. So we announced this effort of giving out 1 million meal packs to the most displaced by the lockdowns. To your other question about the stock price, we don't really look at it. We don't really worry about the day-to-day movement of the stock price. We know that we're here really for the long term, and that if we do the right things, like be able to serve our consumers well and serve our markets well, and sustain our competitiveness and the strategic strength of the business, the stock price will find its own right level. And that's what we saw. Kita naman natin, we knew that it was a crisis situation. Stock prices were going to soften, or in fact maybe even take a dive. But we've been in this game, I guess, for some time to also realize that crises do happen. It's what you do during a crisis and how you respond to it that will dictate where your stock price is going to go, and the health of your company. And so we took note of it, but at the same time we said, let's just keep working on the basic fundamentals and the strategic strength of our business, and the stock price will take care of itself.
Yeah, well said. And that's what I hope people who are watching this would get. No, don't just look at the ticker and the price attached to it. You have to look at what's the underlying
Right.
item that's happening in the business, and how are they pivoting, thriving, and trying to do better. And I do hope that you're taking down notes as we continue here, so that you have the conviction to know where CNPF is also moving forward. And thank you so much for that amazing answer. I'm so curious about this, and for people who are not familiar with how it was pre-pandemic, everyone knows that telcos were doing very, very well for 2020. Then at some point, especially at the height of the lockdown, supermarkets were doing well. And as what you mentioned, your products, a big chunk of them are considered essential.
Right.
How has the sales of the company, uh, how has it traversed no, pre-pandemic, at the height of the pandemic where everyone was stockpiling on
Right.
canned goods, and then when the lockdown restrictions started to ease also and people started going out and eating out as well?
Okay, so pre-pandemic, so I guess I'll talk, yeah, immediately pre-pandemic, and then I'll stretch that thought a little bit further.
Okay.
We were actually seeing a very steady. We had like a good 2019, and because we have like a range of products from mass market to premium items, as they, if in good times, as they upgrade from, let's say, mass market product to more premium products, there are brands and offerings within our portfolio that consumers buy, and as a result, we were seeing the benefit of such a strategy. And as I said, what's unique about our business is that it more or less like insulates itself from crisis, because what happened was, because of the essential nature of our product naman, more people bought the products and stocked up on brands that they could trust. So we had Century, we have 555, we have Argentina, we have Angel Milk, Birch Tree. So these are brand names that people are very familiar with. And during the crisis, that's the consumer response. I need to stock up. I don't know when this lockdown is going to, how long this lockdown is going to continue. And so they went for trusted brands, which many of which are under our portfolio. And we saw something like 40-50% growth in our overall revenue. So Kadikit, it's related to my earlier statement that it's a good thing that the first priority was ensuring the health and safety of our employees, because we were able to get employees come to work at, let's say, 85-90% attendance, while physically distancing them, because we had to put in place the World Health Organization protocols, ensuring all of the PPEs and safety protocols. And that enabled us to sustain production to support that surge, in that dramatic surge in demand. We had to extend this thought further beyond just the plant. We manage 6 manufacturing plants in different parts of the country, and we needed to stay aligned with our suppliers to make sure that sila rin, parang they follow the same health protocols that we were implementing in our plants, so that they can also sustain their supply of material to our requirements. So yeah, we saw demand surging as much as 50%, and it's tapered since then, but it's still let's say going higher than expectation.
When we were at the highest of the lockdowns, was there a point getting your supplies also? Was it relatively harder, or because you were able to set things in place also, the flow of the materials coming in wasn't as hard as what compared to other industries?
Right. One of the things is that we do here is that we have a lot of we prepare for contingency. So we actually build up inventory, not really, in terms of, we don't really say that there's going to be like a crisis that's going to hit every time, but we also make sure that the inventory levels are not thin to the point that they're just in time. We actually we maintain a practice of keeping a buffer. So the other thing is we're forward looking. When there was talk already of the pandemic hitting China, we knew that was one of our supply sources. So we started to have like scenarios, discussions in terms of scenarios, and we were going to do adjustments in terms of how we were going to operate. For example, like the work from home arrangement, protocols in the plant, identifying alternative suppliers, and reconfiguring our supply chains in case anything happens related to the pandemic. And in fact, March 16 was supposed to be the first day of our dry run for the contingency plans. And then that was also the first day of the lockdown. So parang hindi na, this is not a drill, this is the real thing. And we were able to just press the button, and everyone more or less kind of knew what they had to do in response to that pandemic situation. In other words, we were more prepared, I guess, than most. And because that's the culture and nature of the company, to really think ahead in terms of direction and strategy, but at the same time have contingencies and business continuity plans in place. And when there's something that might be, we needed to put some attention on, like an alert of a pandemic in China, we started, the team here started to think through what we needed to do to adjust and be able to operate under the worst case scenario, which actually happened.
Really, preparation time is never wasted time. That
Correct,
as you
correct.
start to build something, when it happens, you don't panic. You just follow a specific plan. I'm curious about this.
One, of course, is to continue strengthening our core brand, Century Tuna, Argentina. The key pillars that we've been using is in alignment with consumer trends, what consumers are looking for. The brands that we have, like Century, of course, spot on. We're among the few brands in the country that addresses that consumer requirement.